Uncontrolled Population, Koster-Giri Wants to select people entering Bali. And after iPhone 16, government bans Google phone sales. More phone banning. Stay tuned for details on these and other stories. Welcome to the latest news from Bali in Indonesia. This is November 3rd, 2024, and my name is Bruce. Selamat siang. What is the weather like today? Well, it is cloudy and hot, 29.8 degrees Celsius, and humidity is up there at 72%. Wind speed is 14.4 kilometers per hour. And are we expecting rain today? I don't know. So 2 days ago, right, we had the big storm here for a couple of hours. Then yesterday it looked like we're going to have a big storm, and it just disappeared suddenly. And today, well, it is cloudy, but pleasant, and, well, hot. 29.8 is not as bad as 32, but it's not as good as 27 either, is it? Lots of warnings around the country about winds and rain, and so if there is, remember to be careful when you are out riding around or walking around or sitting under a tree. Okay, let's get into the first story. Uncontrolled Population. Koster-Giri wants to select people entering Bali. Lately, the issue of conduciveness of the island of the gods as a tourist destination has been in the spotlight. There's been an increase in criminal cases, immigration violations, and physical friction between Balinese and immigrant residents, called Duktan. This issue was raised in the first open debate between candidate pairs for governor and deputy governor of Bali in a series of Bali gubernatorial election campaigns this past Wednesday in Sanur. The problem was triggered by the uncontrolled flow of domestic and foreign migrants. The sugar of tourism, which is Bali's mainstay, invites ants from outside the region, including ants from abroad who see legal and business loopholes in Bali. Responding to the issue of migrants, which has triggered legal, order, crime, immigration, employment, and sociocultural problems, the candidate pair for governor and deputy governor of Bali, number 2, Wayan Koster and E. Nyoman Giri Prasta, offered a solution: selecting immigrants. To select residents who come to Bali, a regional regulation, PERDA, will be made to regulate the arrival of residents to Bali, said former Governor Koster. The dynamic duo plan to form a PERDA where the Bali provincial government, Pemprov, can screen the flow of people entering the island of the gods. The background, motivation, and activities of them need to be examined so that the people who enter Bali do not bring the seeds of trouble. People who come to Bali from outside must be regulated. What will be done in Bali, added former Governor Koster. All residents of the island of the gods, including migrants, are required to respect and obey all legal regulations and norms that apply in Bali. Violations committed by both local residents and migrants will be dealt with equally firmly. Strict law enforcement so that everyone in Bali, both local residents and immigrants, follow the law in Bali in an orderly and disciplined manner. Now, this proposal is something. I'm not even sure this is legal. Can you keep residents from one province from going into another province? I'm not sure. I don't know the law on this. If anybody's got a law and they know the law and they can tell me where to find it, I'd appreciate that. The other is, another problem with this is going to take massive manpower, person power to do. You're going to have to check everybody that is coming in on plane, on boat. Going to be a lot. So I don't know how that's going to work out, if that's going to go anywhere, if this is just something that you say during campaigns. You may remember that there have been problems in the recent past with migrants from Sumba, and so I think this is one of the things that he's alluding to, and the problems with foreigners generally aren't fighting, although, well, they get that too. It's mostly overstaying your visa and working illegally. So, more problems with migrants and immigrants and foreigners and locals, and this is happening all over the world. Take a look at the U.S. election. Immigration is one of the major issues. Okay, let's get into the phone bans again. Wow, so far, right, iPhone 16 has been banned, and now we have the Google phones as well. After iPhone 16, government bans Google phone sales. The industry ministry has banned sales of smartphones made by Alphabet's Google due to rules requiring the use of locally manufactured components, days after blocking sales of tech giant Apple's iPhone 16 for the same reason. The government blocked sales of Google's Pixel phones because the company has not met the rules which necessitate certain smartphones sold domestically to contain at least 40% of parts manufactured locally. We are pushing these rules so that there's fairness for all investors in Indonesia, according to industry spokesperson Febri Hendri Antoni Arif. Wow. He said this on Thursday. Google's products have not adhered to the scheme we set, so they can't be sold here. Google said its Pixel phones were currently not officially distributed in Indonesia. Febri said consumers can buy Google Pixel phones overseas so long as they pay the necessary taxes, adding the ministry would consider deactivating any phones that are sold illicitly. Around 22,000 Google Pixel phones entered Indonesia this year, according to the ministry's data. The ban comes a week after the government said it had blocked the sales of iPhone 16 domestically, also for not meeting local content rules. Companies usually increase the use of domestic components to meet such rules through partnerships with local suppliers or by sourcing parts domestically. Google and Apple are not among the top smartphone makers in Indonesia. Two top ones in the first quarter 2024, Chinese firm Oppo and South Korean firm Samsung. Indonesia has a huge tech-savvy population, making it a key target for tech-related investments. According to the director of the Center of Economic and Law Studies, he said this move was pseudo-protectionism that hurt consumers and impacted investor confidence. This creates a negative sentiment for investors looking to enter Indonesia, he said. Okay, so you can buy a Pixel phone overseas and pay the taxes on it when you bring it here, and then you can use it. You just can't purchase it here in Indonesia at this point. Let's go on to something different. Foreign tourists to Indonesia in September 2024 reached 1.28 million. Wow. The Central Statistics Agency, BPS, reported that the number of foreign tourist visits to Indonesia in September reached 1.28 million, although it decreased by 4.53% compared to August. The figure was recorded as increasing by 19.53% compared to September last year. And August is really high season, and September it's traditionally is when things start to go down. September, then October, then November is usually considered the low season, and then we get a spike again in December because of Christmas and New Year's holidays. Acting head of BPS in a press conference on Friday explained that cumulative visits by foreign tourists reached 10.37 million in September, an increase of 20.28% compared to 2023. However, this number is still lower than the same period in 2019, which reached 12.10 million visits. Based on the data, the largest number of foreign tourist visits in September came from Malaysia, 234,000, or around 18.33% of total visits. Australia next, 159,000, 12.45%. China, 114,000, 8.93%, and Singapore, 106,000, 8.36%. Compared to 2023, visits by foreign tourists from Africa showed the highest increase, with 31.84%, followed by tourists from ASEAN, 26.28%, and Asia, excluding ASEAN, that'd be Japan, China, Korea, up by 20.95%, while visits from tourists from America down 4.31%. The decline in the number of visits also occurred in most nationalities compared to August 2024. However, visits from foreign tourists from Oceania and ASEAN showed an increase of 3.05% and 3% respectively. On the other hand, visits from Europe fell by 17.44%, the most. The average length of stay for foreign tourists in Indonesia in September 2024 was recorded at 7.43 nights, Tourists from Southeast Asia had the shortest average length of stay, 3.39, while tourists from Africa had the longest stay, 13.88 nights. Specifically, tourists from Yemen were recorded as having the longest average stay, 34.93 nights. Wow. While foreign tourists from Hong Kong only spent an average of 2.15 nights in Indonesia. The data shows a positive trend, although there are still challenges in post-pandemic tourism recovery efforts. And of course, there's got to be something about the North Bali airport. Taking input from Jogja, North Bali airport must have positive impact for surrounding community. Let's see what there is to say about the North Bali airport again. The tourism icon of Yogyakarta, DIY, has similarities with Bali, namely cultural tourism. It's just different in the number of tourists who come and the type of tourism. During the visit of the Bali Regional People Representative Council, DPRD, Secretariat together with media to learn about tourism in Jogja, the Secretary of DIY Provincial Tourism Office explained that the number of tourists in 2023 was 27,338,996, of which 105,511 were foreign. So that's all domestic. A lot of domestic people going to Jogja. Well, and if you're in Java, Jogja's relatively close. And if you've never been to Jogja, great place. I love Jogja. I've been to Jogja, I don't know, 5, 6 times. Definitely a place I could live in. My oldest daughter lived there for 5 years. So there are many foreign tourists to Jogja from Malaysia and Singapore, according to the spokesperson from the Jogja Tourism Agency. Tourists prefer Jogja because the character of tourists is mostly students and families. Meanwhile, compared to the number of tourists in Bali, as many as 15.7 million, consisting of 9.87 domestic and 5.27 foreign in December, it's just that the number of foreign tourists in Bali is much greater because almost all world citizens come to Bali. There's no beach resorts and lots of bars in Jogja, as far as I know. So what is Generation Z going to do there? So you go to Jogja. Well, you've got the Jogja itself. You've got the palace. You have Prambanan. You have Borobudur. There is a lot to see in that part of Java, and easy to get to other places around, other cities around Jogja. So sure, it makes sense that you would get domestic tourists and, of course, school kids. Going to bus in there to see in Jogja, a very important place in Indonesian history, especially in the history of the revolution, the battle against the Dutch colonialism. And well, I'll talk about that sometime in a different video when I'm going to talk about book reviews. Compared to Bali, the infrastructure in Jogja is more adequate because all modes of transportation are available. And there's 2 airports. And that the new airport was completed in 2019, and it can get more visits. It gets more visits, but it doesn't really have an impact on the local community. So it's homework to develop the community surrounding the airport. The new airport apparently does not have that in yet. So this could be an input for Bali, which plans to build an airport in Bulang. Of course, the airport must have an impact on the community, according to the spokesperson. She explained that the new airport has little impact on the surrounding community because there's train access that goes directly from the airport to the city of Jogja and back again. So maybe tourists just come by, but not around, not involved. In fact, she said that the Regency around the new airport has many tourist destinations that are starting to develop. It's the task of local government to develop the region so that economic growth is evenly distributed in Jogja. Likewise, Bali must provide a positive impact and welfare for the surrounding community when there is infrastructure development. Equalizing welfare is not only in Sleman and Yogyakarta. We still have the spirit because we are led by the Sultan, so we have to have the spirit that no one region is richer than another. So, what's the gist of all of this? The gist of all this is that things need to development around the new airport. Let's say that there is, for argument's sake, a new airport is actually built at some point over in Kubatambahan. Well, in that case, you need to develop the surrounding area with tourist facilities so that people are just not going to come out of there, get into some kind of transport, whatever kind of transport there's going to be. And of course, that's always an issue in Bali. And then go where? Go to Lovina. What about that area? Of course, there are things over there in that area along the east coast. Arsani, Bukti, Tejakula. So there's things to see there too. And you could also, I guess, go from that airport and you could go down to Ahmed, Tulamben. It wouldn't be too long, less than 2 hour drive. And that's a lovely road, by the way. I love that road. Okay, so, well, more talk about an airport that is, well, I think not likely to be built in my lifetime anyway. Okay, that is it for today. Thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Take care, and I will see you tomorrow. And I've always wanted to do one of these little things. You know, I want to do them because I hate them. It's just kind of like that too. So I just had to do it. My kids do this kind of stuff, and I think every other person on the internet, not me. I'm too old. Okay, see ya.